Chapter 32. They end up in a small room about 2 strides by 2 strides. The Sphinx asks Huan, Kanyu, Cyan, and Kisra to wait near the wall while Rosner follows her and the child to the center. However, it does not take long for Kisra to notice something on the floor. "Wait a second!" Kisra takes a few steps forward but is suddenly pushed back. This is when Rosner notices the runes etched into the stone surface. He looks at the Sphinx, confused. Sphinx, on the other hand, stares at the group. "I cannot risk any of you intervening," she tells them. "What we are about to do is a delicate process and may provoke you to become irrational." "And what is it you tend to do?" Kanyu growls. From beside Rosner, he hears the familiar, soft hiss of a blade being removed from its sheath. He looks at the child and watches as she hands a dagger to the Sphinx. Kisra lets out a shallow breath. "That is a ceremonial dagger." Cyan looks at her, cross. "For what kind of ceremonies?" On the other side, Huan says the one word Rosner was hoping would not be uttered. "Sacrificial." Rosner immediately turns around and backs away from the Sphinx, though when he tries to leave the circle of runes, he cannot. "You cannot run now that we are here," the Sphinx says. "Remember, you asked for this." "I did not ask for that," Rosner exclaims. The Sphinx shrugs. "Given your condition, this is the only feasible way." "What condition?" The child takes half a step forward and addresses the Sphinx. "As I have said, he is not aware." "Aware of what?" Now the child turns to Rosner. "You are the cursed one." Rosner looks at the child in shock. What does that even mean? "If you want answers, we must proceed," the Sphinx prompts. "It is not worth it, boy," Kanyu snaps. Worry mixes with his otherwise angry tone. "Maybe not," the Sphinx admits. "But I must say, now I want answers." The child approaches Rosner. He tries to move, but is unable to. "It is now that we find the truth," she says before sliding the blade into his chest and twisting. Slowly, everything fades from existence. The blackness starts to become familiar to Rosner. He hates it. Unlike the past, however, no one is here to greet him. He even waits around, though for how long he cannot be sure. But there is nothing alive, that is. As he waits, a dim-lit path appears, almost out of pure light. With no other thoughts on what to do, he follows it. Light mist swirls around his feet as he walks. After a period, a forest appears. First one tree here, another there, then in small groups, and finally a crowded wood full of trees barely visible, save a faint outline. No breeze, no sound. Yet he feels watched. Rosner looks around. The only thing he sees is the lack of path behind him. It slowly fades out of existence about 3 strides behind him. After feeling like he has been walking for hours, Rosner finally exits the woods, and when he does, he sees thousands of paths. They all lead to a pure white citadel in front of him. A huge wall stands tall, with towers stationed along its top. All that he can see beyond the wall is a single tower, standing unbelievably high. Instead of trees, small buildings, huts, and tents litter the land. almost like refugees of war looking for asylum. Closer to the wall, a crowd starts to build. Several hundred orcs, elves, dwarves, and humans gather in a clumped mass, seemingly waiting for admittance. Countless others converge on the area behind him. Rosner is not sure how long it takes, but eventually he makes his way to the front, where a large drawbridge spans what he can only describe as a chasm in both length and depth. At the corners of the bridge on the near side stand great white marble statues of warriors in plate armor. Large, majestic, feathered wings unfurl from their backs. They appear to emit a faint glow. Upon crossing the bridge, Rosner spots several real guards flanking the entrance through a thick wall. On the other side, a vast city stands before him. Wide cobblestone streets, housing, markets, and citizens. The residents pay him no attention, not even passing glance. They simply go about their routine. Strange as this is, the crowd Rosner walked in with is no longer about him. He looks behind him. What stares back is only a fraction of the number of creatures he waited with moments before. Confused, he turns back around and jumps back in fright. Before him, a guard hovers, staring at him. Like everything else, his entire body gives a faint glow. Rosner of Tigthrim, brother of Asra and Kedoric, eldest son of Bendra and Rosh. I was informed your appearance may be expected. Come, Pirellios awaits. Without another word, he turns, lowers himself to the ground, and walks off to the heart of the city. Rosner stares after him, trying to collect his thoughts. But when he realizes the guard is not about to check to see if he is following, Rosner scrambles after him. He passes women carrying water jugs and children running through the streets. Even a carriage passes by. Those who happen to be in the path of the guard bow away from him. Where am I? Rosner asks. Reserve all questions for Pirellios, he instructs Rosner. It is a simple statement, but Rosner knows this guy is not going to tell him anything, so he keeps quiet. Another crowd forms outside the castle itself, but instead of waiting as before, the crowd parts at the guard's arrival and closes behind Rosner. Once through the main entrance, instead of following the crowd, the guard leads him to the left and down a wide side corridor, a turn to the right, and they climb a staircase. Then another hallway and another staircase. Another hallway, another staircase. This last one, though, takes much longer to climb than the others. Rosner eventually loses count on how often they wrap around, but by the end of it, he is not even tired, not even a touch winded. The double doors in front of him are plain oak. Wait here, the guard says, then disappears down the staircase again. Rosner's patience wears thin shortly after. He tries the door and is surprised to find it unlocked. He looks around, and seeing no one, he slides in. The first thing he notices is half the wall is missing, like a massive window with no glass. Then he sees the large table in the middle of the room. Torn between the two oddities, he walks over to the table. At first, he is clueless to what he is staring at. It looks like someone modeled mountains and large bodies of water, plains and forests. He cannot make any sense of it. That is, until he recalls some of the books he has read in certain familiar locations. It is a map, possibly of all of Omnimentus. What is more, the trees sway and the water flows, and if he listens closely, he thinks he can hear the faint whisper of animals. Lovely, is it not? Rosner jumps, then silently curses himself. Why does everyone keep sneaking up on him? At the door stands a tall, slender man, clean-shaven, short-haired. His voice is melodic, but not like the elves. They tend to almost sing. His is more of a gentle hum. The man's clothing is not regal, as Rosner expects, but it is still more than a commoner wears. He walks over to Rosner, saying, I was told I should expect someone at some point, but here, that is almost meaningless. He chuckles. It is strange. Something about him seems familiar. I'm sorry, Rosner says. Who are you? Oddly, this makes him laugh more. My boy, he says. Is it not you who have been seeking? I am Perilios. Now it is Rosner's turn to laugh. He cannot help it. This is crazy. He paces the room. I have to be dreaming. The man, claiming to be a dead god, lets out a loud hum, followed by, not quite. Then I must be dead, Rosner concludes. The man approaches the table. You are more right than not on that account. What does that... Rosner stops himself and looks at the man calmly, but just as demanding. What is going on? A shrug is what he receives. I had hoped you would tell me, Rosner of Ticthrim. Rosner looks out the window, suddenly exhausted. How is it he climbed countless stairs without anything happening, but a conversation wears him out? In the far distance, he sees a faint red glow. Below, just beyond the city and the towering walls, he sees the edge of the forest take form. Countless rivers of light stream from it. All seem to converge here. Still staring into the vastness, Rosner asks, I was told seeking out Perilios would help save my brother. Next thing I know, I'm being stabbed. Twice. The man walks beside him, but still maintains some distance between the two of them. Why seek my help saving your brother? Surely you are aware the gods do not meddle in small affairs. Rosner surprises himself with how small his voice gets. But it is not a small affair. Such that so many believe, the man sighs. Rosner shakes his head. This cannot be the end, yet his body feels sluggish. It was not just my belief, he tells the man, his words like his body. I was told to seek the dragon's tear by the Death King. What do you know of the dragon's tear? The man demands, his voice suddenly bitter cold, though his expression remains neutral. Taken aback by the change in tone, Rosner glances at him, concerned. Nothing, save that it was also called the Master Elixir. And the Death King, the man presses. Well, no. Rosner's thoughts muddled together under the man's scrutiny. My sister's dragon said so. That and this old man who calls himself Palfrey. The man seems to run through every emotion possible, from furious to understanding, then to fear and contentment. So, it finally begins, he mutters to himself, though Rosner catches his words. He then turns to Rosner and says, So, your next stop is to be Savona. How did you... The man walks to the far wall. If what you seek is the Master Elixir, the Dragon's Tear, that is the next step you must take. I can supply you with half of what you seek. When he turns around, he holds a small vial to the corner of his eye. Then he returns to Rosner and hands it over. Rosner takes it and looks at it. A drop of clear liquid moves about at the bottom. And this, Rosner says, suspicious, is going to help my brother. The man shakes his head. Normal circumstances? Yes. But if your brother is possessed by one of Ascender's lieutenants, or worse, himself, you will need Savona as well. But I never told you my brother was possessed. Chakri shared this with me long ago. You may know her as the Seer, he informs Rosner. Rosner's knees buckle. His head starts to spin. Why is he so exhausted? I fear you run the risk of expiring truly, the man says. So I think it has come that you are sent back. Remember, Savona is the last part you need, though I do not believe she will be as willing to give up a tear. Individually, they must not fall into hands other than yours. Together, I dare not imagine the outcome. I trust we will cross again, but not for many years. That is, if you succeed. It may be his disorientation, but it looks like the old man nods to someone else in the room. Strange. He thought that they were the only ones. He feels a sharp pain in his chest, then darkness. True nothingness. You are lucky he is moving, or there would be a couple of holes in you. Even in a dazed state, it would be difficult not to recognize that voice. Good to know Kanyu is looking out for him. You would have done nothing of the sort, the Sphinx comments casually. Says who? The dwarf demands. Says I, the Sphinx says, a hint darker than earlier. He grumbles something. Whatever it is, the Sphinx is not satisfied with it. You test my hospitality, dwarf. I urge you to reconsider your position. Rosner opens his eyes and forces himself to sit up. Where is he? Dim-lit room, dirt walls, straw mattress under a thin fur blanket. He is in a guest room, and a small one. A table sits against a wall with Kanyu, the Sphinx, the child, and Cyan around it. Huan and Kisra stand in the doorway. Cyan stands as soon as she sees Rosner sit up, but Huan is already at his side, checking his condition. He does not say anything, and he does not have to. Even though the orc is looking at his health, he is also looking for anything abnormal, anything that might explain how he survived. Rosner feigns any knowledge of this. If the orc can figure out how he is still alive, that would make one of them. But he does not. He leans back and stands straight. The Sphinx does the same. Your companion should recover before any questions are directed his way. I suggest all make their leave. The dwarf stands. After you. Hospitality, the Sphinx chimes. Hospitality. Still, she is the first to leave. One by one, they file out, until the child remains. She walks up to him and slips something from her sleeve. Rosner freezes when she presses it into his hand. This is yours to protect, she tells him. He watches her walk out and close the door. Then he opens his hand and stares at the vial. And just when he was starting to think it was a dream.